Value to me is about identifying the point where spending any more money is just going to bring you into the territory of marginal gains. And if you, like me, love filter coffee and you want to have it brewed by a machine, tasty every time, nice, clean, strong extractions that make a good full cup of coffee that is flavorful, balanced, and worry-free, this is the combination you need to get. The Fellow Ode and the Ratio 6. It's the best value I have ever seen in the 8 years I've been heavily involved in coffee. Never before have I been so confident about recommending two simple pieces of equipment to really upgrade someone's brewing equipment at home to a standard where it would be very tough for them to ever want to upgrade further. Now that's a bold statement. So I'm going to take a time to talk a bit more about why both of these pieces of equipment are the way to go. And I'm going to really make this clear. It's not because they're good looking. That's just an added bonus. We care about the cup quality. Capiche? Let's get started. So the criteria here is we're looking for at least a 50-gram dose in and at least 800 milliliters or grams of water to be brewed. You can go higher, not really trying to go lower. This is the spot that I'm evaluating these from. Now, I have evaluated a slew of automatic brewers over the years. And the Ratio 6 is the only one that I have not felt like I am leaving some flavor or extraction on the table by allowing the machine to pour the water for me. It's really completely worry-free to me, and I've never felt that way about a piece of equipment before. Going back all the way to my original brewer, the Wilfa Precision, it has a smaller shower head that is going into a Melita cone, and there was no bloom function built in. You could hit a pause button to pause the brew, do with the slurry what you will, but that no longer makes it automatic. So that thing went, even though it was beautiful. Then moved on to the Behmor brewer, which was very great. You were able to program it, access it from your phone, and it had a massive shower head. Absolutely soaked every inch of the bed every time. But I could never slow the flow enough to really get a solid extraction. I actually found myself doing this psychotic dance where after the initial rush of water for the bloom, I would pull the tray out and rapidly stir everything and put it back in. And only when I would do that would I get adequate extractions in and above Gold Cup. So again, it's not actually an automatic brewer for light roasted coffee that I like to drink. So hit the curb. Finally came the Breville Precision brewer. I'm a very big fan of Breville products. I love the Breville dual boiler. It's an incredible espresso machine. You can produce magnificent espresso at home. So I was so happy whenever they finally came out with a drip coffee brewer. And it was very, very good. The larger batches, I tended to favor more with it, where here's why. If you brewed 800 milliliters or less, they recommended that you put the Melita wedge-shaped cone inside. And above 800, very specifically there, conveniently, the size I like to drink or brew, and they would recommend that you just remove it and go to the bigger, flat bun style filter for the larger batches. Now, that's great for flexibility, but the spray head was really, really tiny. Even though the machine boasted temperature control, ability to control the flow, the time that the bloom happens, again, the flow rate, the spray head didn't soak all the coffee. The best batches on that were the ones that were 1 liter and above, where you could use the big flat bottom brewer where it would just eventually pool up and soak everything together evenly, and you get a deep, sweet cup, but you would lose clarity. So that had to go as well. In search of clarity, I ended up getting a Ratio 8, the original that predated this, similar water delivery system, and it used a kind of, let's politely call it a faux Chemex, where you've got the glass that holds the Chemex filters. But as much as I love Chemex, I don't like them automatically brewed, because the cone filter, you always are in a position where you're not actually getting a good even extraction out of all of the grounds. So yet again, I'd find myself starting the brew, stirring it, and we've immediately written it off as being an automatic coffee brewer. I just didn't like it for the coffee that I had. You could still get a cup of coffee out of it, don't get me wrong. It just was not to the level that I would expect from a manually poured Chemex. And again, the criteria here is that I want something that I don't feel like I'm leaving anything on the table by allowing a machine to do it for it. So Oxo came out with a new drip coffee brewer a couple of months ago. So different than the other styles that they've had in the past, which have been similar to machines that I've already mentioned here. And this machine was targeted both at 1-cup brewers, which actually had a nice little holder for a Kalita wave filter, and for the same bun filters that we're using in here. And all of the cups that I had were very hot and strong, and they did a good job of making sure that the water delivery was hot and relatively even, but the cups never were as balanced as I would prefer. Even if you could get a very high strength cup, I didn't like it, and I ended up returning it fairly quickly. Now, the grinder part of this equation is where this becomes a bit more tricky, because there's quite a bit of different technologies at different price points, and I want to explain why I would pick the Ode over any other grinder, at least we'll call it in the prosumer or grinder that would be acceptable on most kitchen counters category. So I've owned most Baratza grinders that have come out in the past. I've also owned a Alito 2 grinder. So just to run it down, I also had an Encore with the newer burrs, Virtuoso, a Forte BG with both burr sets, and of course EK43. Extensive experience with other different grinders like the Ditting 804. And again, we're looking at value, right? The point where you really start to go into the territory of marginal gains past this point, and I think that that's right here. And I liked the cups from this more for batch brew than I did from even the Forte BG. You were able to get an average extraction yield that was quite a bit higher on this for the batches and still maintain clarity and balance than I was able to ever with my Forte BG. The Forte BG with those steel Ditting made burrs, I really tended to not like anything over 20% in terms of extraction yield, and I still drink the similar types of coffees. But with this, I was able to routinely get it to about 22% before I started encountering any kind of astringency or bitterness, and that was across a wide range of coffees. So, hey, the progress and technology, it always marches forward with time, and I'm really happy that you can now get something this small and relatively inexpensive on your counter to go with a nice brewer like the Ratio 6. So now's the part where I'm actually going to talk about money. If you wanted to get both of these new, it's about $650 after tax, at least if you're in the United States. Now, that does sound like a lot of money just to produce simple filter coffee whenever anybody and their mother has a Mr. Coffee they got for $10 at Walmart. But again, we're looking for something that is going to bring your home into the space where you may feel comfortable not even going to cafes anymore. And this right here is the combo. Honestly, if you're even watching this video, you probably have already sunk several $100s into either coffee beans, brewing equipment, and just the hobby in of itself. So $650, it may give you sticker shock at first thought, but let's break it down. How much did you spend on your fancy kettle? How much did you spend on your fancy smart scale? What about all the beans you buy? Or even the dripper that you're using? If you wanted to get a entry-level hand grinder and a kettle that is very Instagrammable, very popular, and just that you feel comfortable having out, you've already broken the $250 barrier. Let's just get that out of the way. We're skipping over the Hario Skeleton, things of that nature. We're going right to the $100 mark for these now because there's a whole wide range of options. And you've already spent maybe a third of the budget that you could with this. And guess what? You don't have to wait for water to boil with this. Do you actually like standing around waiting for water to boil? Pouring, having your friends, coworkers, and family stare at you as you watch this tiny stream of water gently hit the grounds, and you reassure them that it's really great. You're really going to make them a good cup of coffee, and you're telling yourself that too because you're worried that you are going to screw it up because you're human, right? So how about this? The value proposition is $650. Remove yourself from the equation. Make fantastic coffee every time that's almost going to serve any need or want that you could have in drip coffee, and have it look beautiful on your countertop. That is a value.